and Thabo Mbeki to remove Justice Sisi Khampepe as its chair. This after the former presidents petitioned the court to review and set aside Khampepe's decision to remain in her role as chair. The commission says the ruling marks the final hurdle in securing evidence from the former presidents regarding their roles in allegedly delaying the prosecution of TRC cases during their tenures. Dimakato Leshoro reports.
The TRC Commission has previously labelled former Presidents Jacob Zuma and Thabo Mbeki's legal challenge a delay tactic. The two former statesmen have been opposed to giving evidence before Khampepe, alleging she is biased. Testimony before the Commission has directly linked Mbeki to actively playing a role in preventing the prosecution of former security branch members in exchange for a stay in prosecution of ANC leaders. The Khampepe Commission has had evidence from 30 witnesses. Commission spokesperson Lionel Adendorf says the judgment allows the Commission to continue its work.
We are certain that this was the last hurdle after so many attempts to delay our work, to frustrate our work, and that now we can continue with our work uninterrupted.
However, it's not clear yet if the two presidents will appeal the High Court's decision, which could delay the work of the Commission even further. Dimakato Leshoro, Eyewitness News.
Taxi Association Santaco in the Western Cape says fares could increase soon due to steep fuel price hikes expected from Wednesday. Petrol is set to rise by at least 5 rand a litre, while diesel will increase by more than 9 rand a litre. Santaco Provincial Chairperson Mandla Hermanus says no decision has been taken yet on a fare increase. He says the association will first assess the impact of the fuel hikes on operations before making a call.
Probably by the end of April, associations will be able to determine how the cost of fuel now is impacting on our operations, and then we will adjust our fares accordingly.
Hermanus adds that local taxi associations will ultimately set their own fares.
These vary depending on what routes those associations operate, because sometimes within one association the prices might be different depending on the distances from one point to the other on the network of routes that association might be operating.
Meanwhile, Cape Town's My City bus service has assured its commuters that fares will not increase next month. MACO member for Urban Mobility Rob Quintus says My City fares are based on a diesel price threshold of a price of 24 rand 12 cents a litre, which is above the current wholesale price of diesel.
A fare increase is only triggered if the fuel price exceeds the next fare level for 2 out of 3 months or for 2 consecutive months. Only after this happens is the new fare implemented from the first Saturday of the following month.
And the American University of Armenia has announced a temporary halt to all face-to-face classes. The institution is moving all classes online following Iranian threats to target U.S. universities in West Asia. Iran threatened to target U.S. universities in the Middle East after saying U.S.-Israeli strikes had destroyed 2 Iranian universities. The university insists it has not received any direct threats and stressed there was no cause for alarm. There have been tensions and violence in the Middle East since the US and Israel attacked Iran in February. This resulted in retaliatory attacks by Iran, mostly in the Gulf region. Gold is trading at $4,528.58 an ounce. The rand is at 17.19 to the dollar, 22.75 to the pound, 19.75 to the euro, and Brent crude oil is at $115.38 a barrel.
Senton, accident scene, M1 southbound just after Caller Drive, causing more than a 30-minute delay all the way from Marlborough Drive. So at this stage, if you're leaving Midrand heading towards Soweto or the south, rather use the N1 southbound. That's off the Butlu interchange via Roodepoort.
It's a partly cloudy afternoon in Gauteng with showers and thundershowers expected. Temperatures have peaked at highs of between 27 and 30 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour, demonstrations against the installation of a so-called Nigerian king in Kukompo in the Eastern Cape have turned violent.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Relebogile Mabotja
Live, streaming countrywide.
on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856
92.7
and 106 FM.
Minutes after 1 o'clock. Welcome to 702 Afternoons with me, Relebogile Mabotja. Happy Monday. I hope you had a beautiful weekend. I have to be honest, I'm in such a good mood just because the weather is so sunshine and bright, and I'm so nervous for winter. I think we're going to die of the cold this season. But coming up on the show for today, I want to find out about parking bay and parking lot etiquette, right? Now, K53 didn't really teach us about the etiquette, but maybe there is an understanding on the road. For example, if you see somebody going with their trolley to their car, what is the etiquette? What is the time limit before you start hooting to say, hey, Baba, come out, I want to park? I want to hear from you around all of those issues, and how do we follow them, and what are the number one rules for you? Movies and what to stream. Adelaide Moyang joins us, who is founder of Movies and Stuff SA. Please make sure you send through all of your recommendations of things to watch. There's so much content at the moment. You will always find something for yourself. The travel feature, we're talking traveling on the iconic blue train between Pretoria and Cape Town with Iga Motilska, and her website is igajourneys.com. That's where you can go to get more information on travel experiences. If you've done the blue train, let us know how it was. Second hour of the show, Parenting and Parents feature. We're talking navigating parallel parenting. Now, if you're like, what is parallel parenting? Ayanda Tetiana will join us for that conversation. Parenting coach, family therapist, and behavioral science consultant. And then the naked scientist, Dr. Chris Smith, is with us to answer all of your science-related questions. So get in touch. 011 883 0702. SMS us 31702, tweet at Relebogile M, at Radio 702, the WhatsApp line 072 702 702, and of course find us on the socials at Relebogile M at Radio 702 using the hashtag 702 Afternoons.
702 Afternoons
with Relebogile Mabotja.
on 702.
Let's walk the talk.
I think I have the capacity to be a Paddy LaBelle. If you don't know what a Paddy LaBelle is, a Paddy LaBelle is a person who is petty. So I saw this woman sharing her experience where she was going into, basically she had finished her shopping. So when the person sees, oh, this person is starting to load groceries into the car, she was carrying heavy things. Now the person waiting started to get impatient and started hooting at her and flipping her off to hurry it up because they want to use her parking spot. After she's done, she closes the boot, she goes in and she starts recording this video to say, I'm going to wait here until like my body even starts to, what is it called? Rigor mortis. She says the way she has time that day, because that man was so rude to her, she's not even going to leave the parking. And at that point, I think she had been in the car for a good 10 minutes, meaning the person could have looked for another parking, but they instead chose to wait to go into the parking she was at and hoot and swear at her. And it really got me thinking about some of those parking bay dramas, the parking lot etiquette that we need to follow. Because for me, I generally will ask, if I see somebody going with a trolley and it's quite full, sorry, are you coming out? And the person will say, yes, I am. And then you're like, great, you indicate and you wait. Or it'll be a situation of, no, I'm not coming out, no problem, you keep it moving. And there have been moments where I was like, why is this person taking 7 years? You know, you see them, they're done with the groceries, they close the boot, they go inside, and now it's like, it feels like time is moving forever. Now, even if I'm irritated, I don't do anything about it. I don't hoot. I don't anything. And if I'm really impatient, I just move along and look for another parking. Simple. But in this particular case, the person was so irate, they started hooting and hooting and hooting for this woman to get out her parking. And she's like, oh, okay, I'm going to play this game with you and sit in this car. People in the comments were saying, you must Uber Eats your supper to your parking. You must just stay there. Actually, go back in the shop and go shopping again. So what are these parking lot, parking bay etiquettes that we need to be aware of? And maybe these are not even laws, but they are things that you wish could be implemented. I'm going to give one example that drives me nuts. So my belief is you mustn't just park inside the lines. You must also park straight, and I'll tell you why. If you are inside your lines, but your car is skew, it's going to affect how other people come out of their parking. So please, be considerate with how you park. But I also know that you might get there to a skew person who is skew because the other guy was skew. So now we're all skew, and now we're mad at the wrong skew person. Right? So there's that scenario. There is that scenario. And then there are the scenarios where a person says, I like to park far from other cars because I'm scared of my car getting scratched. Can you imagine the annoyance of a person parking far where there's nobody else, ne? Maybe it's not even a Ferrari. It's just they love their far. And then some person sees that car on its own and they come and park right next to you. Why do you do that? It's the same as if you get on a bus or a train, Kochau train, you can see the whole cart is empty. I'm sitting by myself, but now you want to come sit right next to me. Like, why? But will you allow somebody to just come sit next? So please tell me, what for you is an absolute no-no when it comes to parking lots and parking bays? Oh, my other one that is a no-no for me. I use my mirrors and my cameras. My insurance does not cover waza, and then you hear goo. Whoa. I don't. I will still tip the parking guys, but I don't rely on them to park my car. So I want to hear from you about all the necessary and relevant parking bay etiquette. 011 883 0702, the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702.
Your voice.
Your life.
Your afternoon radio.
On 702 Afternoons.
With Relebogile Mabotja.
15 minutes after 1 o'clock, let us talk about parking lot and basic parking bay etiquette. 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702. I think the other one that kind of drives me nuts, right? You know those car wash companies that are in the shopping mall parking lots, ne? So what happens is it's their job. It's what they have to do. But can I get out of my car with breathing space? Already I haven't even blinked. I haven't even closed my car door. Already there's somebody standing on top of me to wash the car. Rikopa space. Here are some of your messages where we asked the question. I'll start on Facebook about the basic parking lot and parking bay etiquette rules that every driver should be knowing and implementing. Mutwane says, always ensure that your car's closed all the time. Best move is to hit to lock mobilizer while you're still inside the car with the door open. That way you can ensure that all doors are not jammed and hacked. Oh yes, this is an important one. The hacking, the jamming of cars. I even see it in certain malls and parking lots where they say, please check that your doors are locked. Rian Smith says, don't reverse into every parking bay like you think it makes you look cool, while you can't reverse to save your life, and then you hold up 50 cars while you waste everybody's time. I'm going to add to that, Rian. If you know you don't know how to parallel park or you're struggling, I think 3 chances is enough. Then you must give up and find another parking. Like if you're making cars wait for you to parallel park, and you've done more than 3 attempts, no, give up. Give up or let another driver come and help you park. Like, let somebody get in Baupakele. But if you're holding up traffic and now you've come out of the parallel park the 3rd time, no, guys. Move on. Let's go to Bernard in Pretoria. Hi, Bernard.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks, and you?
All right, man. This topic is quite interesting, eh?
Yes.
Every time I park between cars, I'll find there's a dent on my left-hand side door. Now I've decided to park alone if I'm in a mall, you know. But for some reason, I'll find somebody next to my car. Even how awkward is the parking space we have stopped. And I don't understand how this happens. How does people's minds work? But it's quite interesting.
So wait, are you saying that the other parkings bays are empty, but they come right next to you?
They will go where I've parked my car. And I always tell my kids, watch this space. I'm going to park far, but when I come back, we'll find there will be somebody parking.
Why do they do that? It's so weird. Why?
It's so weird, I don't know. But it's quite fun because I already predict that they are going to do it. So, yeah, and close again. So I don't know, is it because they think you are trying to move away? Or for some reason, maybe the car is attractive, I don't know. But it's something very, very, very fun that I observed.
I think, you know what? They feel sorry that your car's alone. That's why they park there. So they're doing it for you and your car. Your car's lonely.
Yeah. No, but that's an interesting topic. Eh?
Thank you so much, Bernard in Pretoria. Guys, if you see somebody parked by themselves, please leave them alone. Give them space to breathe. Hey, that poor car just needs a moment to itself. Nikki in Joburg. Hi, Nikki.
Hello, how are you?
Good, thanks, and you?
I'm fine, thank you. So I've got a lovely story about parking. I was parking I was looking for a parking in a shopping center, and two previous parkings I'd spotted had been stolen by somebody else, zipping in front of me. So the 3rd time it happened, I was furious. So the guy zipped in front of me and he parked, and I stopped next to him and I said, "Excuse me, I was waiting for the parking place. My indicator was on." He just locked his car and he left. So I jumped out of my car and I found my key and I pulled off his little tire caps and I started letting down his tires.
What?
And John security came running and said to me, "Stop doing that." And I said, "You watched this man steal my parking place. I was waiting. You could see and you left it. So you leave me alone." And I slapped his hands out the way because he was trying to pull my hands off the tire.
So all you did was deflate the tires?
Yes, I deflated his tires. My children were so embarrassed they ran and hid. And he came back and he saw me doing it. And I said to him, "You're behaving like an absolute pig. You stole my parking place and I'd spoken to you about it and you took no notice." So I started walking off and he said to me, "Where are my little caps?" I can't remember what they're called. You know, when you inflate a tire, you put the little cap on. He said, "Where are they?" So I said, "I don't have the vaguest idea." In the meantime, they were in my pockets, in my jeans.
Nikki!
And he followed me through the shopping center, staring at me, being really abusive. And some other chap came up to me and said to me, "Don't worry about him, he's badly behaved." So that was my experience in the parking lot. I understand we have to be careful. We don't know who we're dealing with. But it was the last straw to have my 3rd parking stolen. So that's what I did. I let his tires down.
So let me say something to you, Nikki. As a radio host, I'm going to say don't ever do that again. As Relebogile, who was fed up herself in many situations, I'm giving you a very slow clap. Oh, my God. But yes, be careful. There are crazy people out there who have nothing to lose. But Nikki, oh, my gosh. I can't believe you took the caps with you. You're so brave.
In my pocket, and he followed me and he swore, and the children kept hiding because they were so embarrassed of my behavior.
Did you give them back to him eventually? Oh my gosh, Nikki!
He didn't offer up his parking place after I'd spoken so nicely to him. If he wants to behave badly, well, then he's going to be treated badly. Some people don't understand, so they've got to learn the hard way.
Yo, Nikki, I'm putting you in the naughty corner. As of today, we're starting a 7:02 afternoon's naughty corner. Nikki is there. Tabiso in Pretoria. Hi.
Hi, Lebo. It's very funny. So I park also very far, also just as a safety thing. But anyway, I park far and there's never any other car next to you. And then someone decides to come park next to you. So it actually happened yesterday at church. I'm still sitting in my car. Man, this old man just decides parked right next to me. There are like 5, 6 empty parking bays. I looked at him just so that he could see me open my window, and then I drove to the next one. And he looked at me. I was like, never.
So wait, he literally... You looked at him and then you moved.
I moved so he could see that, you know what, don't do this, don't do that, please.
Can I tell you the soundtrack for the story you're sharing with me?
Yeah.
Do you know that song, I Want to Get Next to You?
Oh.
I can't believe you drove.
Not that song.
He just wanted to be next to you. House.
I know.
What happened to Ubuntu? Ubuntu at the parking lot.
No. You know what? I'm not Ubuntu next. No. Respect me, please.
Thank you so much. Tabiso in Pretoria. Guys, those of you that park next to people, please tell us why. Like, why if you see a person by themselves, there are all these bays, why do you suddenly go and park there? All right, some of your messages on the WhatsApp line. Relebogile, can I be allowed to check my messages as I get into the car? I will not text while I drive, Oli. Okay, that's fair. So somebody's waiting for the parking, but you want to get yourself together, so it does take some time. But what's the limit? What is the limit of checking messages? Like, what is the limit? I think 3 minutes is fair. 3 minutes to get in the car. And if you have a child, you need to put them in a car seat. The 3 minutes only start when your safety belt is on. I think 3 minutes is fair. Making people wait for 10 minutes is hectic, is absolutely hectic. That is hectic. Regan says, common sense, respect, and discipline are non-existent in South Africa. And Ta says, park within the white lines on either side, please, not on the line. Sekana says, all vehicles should be parked in reverse in public places. It makes evacuation easy and seamless in case of emergency. Some people don't know how to park in reverse properly. That's another thing. Vainan from Florida says, yeah, this sounds like the parking at Spa in Florida, Goldman Street. Graham on Facebook says, you can't be having a whole conversation about your next stop or deciding who ordered what from McDonald's with your car door open while someone is waiting to park next to you. It's possible to talk sitting in your car. Just try it once. I second you. The open car door, the only exception where you must wait is if somebody the door's open because they're clipping their child in the car seat or helping an elderly person in, or those are the circumstances I think that are fair. High level, sure. I worked with a woman who some years ago was waiting for a parking, and just as she prepared to pull in, another person stole her parking. She went and found another parking and then proceeded to go to the parking thief and deflated 3 of his tires. Anonymous from Honeydew. Are we not talking about the same Nikki? Yeah. Tabo says, simple, park within your lines. A car that's waiting and indicating for a bay has a right to that space. You can't come around the corner and jump in, yet so many do it, Tabo. Hi, Relebogile, I see a lot of this at the gym, whereby the person coming out of the gym will get into their car, take out their phone and sit in that car on the phone whilst other gym members coming in are struggling for parking. We have your voice notes on 0727021702.
Good afternoon, Relebogile. Good show as always. When it comes to parking, what I don't like at all is when people just park skew, and it forces you as well to also park skew. And then when you come out, when you're done with whatever you're done, you come back, it looks like you are the one that just parked skew.
and whoever comes after, they just think, oh, this guy cannot drive or cannot park for that matter. So that annoys me a lot. With the example that you made of somebody getting into the bus and the bus is empty, they come to sit next to you. I know I'm digressing a bit here. It reminds me of the steam room at the gym. You know, you'll be just sitting in the corner, there'll be just two of you, and then the person comes and they just come close to you, sit close to you, which I find is also annoying. But yeah, good show as always. Thank you, Relebogile.
So here's my favorite one. You know, there's always a clear place where people can park. There's normally white lines, you know, so it's set aside for people to be able to park in. And then you find people who, in the middle of the road or in between shops or wherever they choose, decide to turn that into a parking bay, carry hazards. Like we already have one. There it is. It's set aside. You switching on your hazards doesn't K53 it into a parking bay. I know we do it, like I know people, they always do it, like Kolokshin, if they're driving. Someone just wants to stop there, now hazards, now everybody must understand, oh, okay, shoot, I'm parking here. But that also happens in malls as well.
Good afternoon, Relebogile. What an interesting topic indeed. Now, this one is my favorite. I always, there are some guys who drive Ford Rangers and Raptors and Toyota Buckies and all these nice big cars. And they will park and the driver's side is over the lines on the parking. So what I always do is I will try and get as close to that person so that the driver can't even open the door. Teach them a lesson. And that guy will wait there if he can't think of climbing in on the other side. Thanks, Relebogile. Have a good one. Nice topic as always.
Hi, Relebogile. People that get annoyed and impatient at other cars not coming out of parking spaces need to check themselves, because what level of entitlement is that? Parking lots work on a first come, first serve basis. And if you're waiting and assuming just because you see a person with a trolley going to the car that person is leaving, that's your problem. Your people really, really need to check themselves.
Yo, guys, it's a lot. Vanessa says, on the parking etiquette, hands up to those that leave their trolleys in between parking bays, which makes it more difficult to park. Now I have to get out and move the trolley to park, and after parking, then move it out the way to the trolley bay. Lazy buggers. This is from Vanessa. And can you imagine you get out your car to move a trolley, and as you're moving the trolley, somebody else comes and takes your parking? Oh, we'll wrap up your voice notes when we come back. It's 1:30. Time for latest Eyewitness News headlines. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Relebogile. Good afternoon. Vehicles have been torched and businesses looted during demonstrations against the installation of a so-called Nigerian king in Gugombo in the Eastern Cape. Police have fired rubber bullets to disperse crowds after the protest turned violent. Various organizations took to the streets today in what was a peaceful march, calling for action to be taken, saying that coronation was unacceptable. The TRC Cases Inquiry has welcomed the High Court's decision to dismiss an application by former Presidents Jacob Zuma and Thabo Mbeki to remove Justice Sisi Khampepe as its chair. This after the former heads of state petitioned the court to review and set aside Khampepe's decision to remain in her role as chair. The commission says the ruling marks the final hurdle in securing evidence from the former presidents. And agricultural groups are urging the Mineral Resources Department to urgently consider a temporary adjustment to the fuel pricing mechanism in order to stabilize supply. The call comes ahead of an expected fuel price hike this week, driven by the Middle East conflict. The organizations warn of emerging supply constraint, particularly in rural areas. Those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 2 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Santon accident scene, M1 southbound before Caller Drive. This is causing more than a 30-minute delay all the way from Marlborough Drive. So at this stage, if you're leaving Midrand heading towards the south, Soweto, rather use the N1 south off the Patroon to change, and that is driving through via Roodepoort. Otherwise, The rest of 702 land not looking too bad. We still have delays though. That's if you're heading in and out of the Joburg CBD on Main Reef Road between Anderson and Nazareth. If you come across any other traffic issues, kindly WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Clement Maniatella.
Weekday mornings,
9 to 12.
9 to 12.
We hear what you're saying as industry, we hear what government is saying, but there seems to be a mismatch because motorists, many of them are concerned on the ground. What's your message to the motorists out there?
Yeah, I hear you, Clement. But like you said, you can't over-communicate on something like this. People, they are panicking, but there's adequate stock availability. Remember, when I say this thing is going to self-correct, there are very few people who can use a full tank within 3 days. So by then, this price adjustment will have passed and everything should be normalized. We'll all get, fuel. We should not worry. We will have enough fuel for everyone.
Abafani Chifularo, the Chief Executive at the Fuels Industry Association of South Africa.
Clement Maniatella.
9 to 12 on 702.
Spinners on Get Prize Drops gives you the chance to win a share of an epic 2.5 million rand in cash and tech gadgets. Enjoy a spinning spectacular and unwrap exciting wonders where fortunes fall from the sky and you could claim amazing prizes with every round. Simply bet 2 rand or more on selected pragmatic play slots Mondays, Tuesdays and Thursdays and enjoy sweet success. Hollywood Bets. It's more fun to spin with us. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counseling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
Dreaming of a home renovation? We see you. Cash Build and Capitec bring you the partnership that has both the quality building materials you need and access to an affordable home improvement loan with competitive interest rates and extended repayment terms. Apply in-store at Cash Build or any Capitec branch between March 30th and April 30th to stand a chance to win a 20,000 Rand Cash Build voucher and other prizes. T's and C's apply. Capitec is an authorized provider and FSP. Initiation and service fee apply.
When you're running a small business, you need someone who speaks your language, who understands when you talk innovation, growth, scaling. Someone like MTN Business and 702. The 702 MTN Small Business Awards, from the townships to the suburbs and everywhere in between. We want to talk about you and your business. Go to primemediaplus.com to enter your business or nominate one you know. Because once we start talking about where you are now, you'll be well on your way to reaching your next. The 702 MTN Small Business Awards. Let's talk shop. T's, C's and more on primemediaplus.com.
WhatsApp Relebogile on 072 702 1702.
25 minutes to 2 o'clock. We've been talking about parking bay drama and etiquette. Some of your messages. Relebogile, can I be allowed to check my Apologies, that's from Koli. So we're agreeing that you can check your messages in the car, but don't exceed the 3-minute timer. I said 3 minutes. Happy to hear from you. Another person says Nikki must go for anger management. Oh, guys, Nikki's story. Like, when you are that fed up, hey, I get it. When you are that frustrated, I get it. Aish Lebza, what for me is an absolute no-no is those fellow men who choose to come stand next to you at the urinals in public toilets at the mall when the entire block is clearly empty. Like, brother, can I go pee in that urinal by myself in the corner there in peace without worrying about you ogling next to me? Gents, please stop. It's so weird. I'm assuming the urinal guys are the same guys that park right next to you somewhere else. That's my assumption. Afternoon level, it's Prince here in Pumula. What gets me boiling are people that you sit with in a taxi. And then as soon as one person gets off, the remaining person sitting next to you doesn't move until you move and then they shift. Oh, as in like you guys, spreading out if somebody got off the taxi. I'm assuming that's what you're saying. Another one says, park your car in the center so that other cars can have room to maneuver. If it's a mall, don't leave your trolley there. Take it back and don't use the paraplegic one If you do, walk out the car limping. I'm kidding. Just don't do it. That's from Mohale. And then your voice note on 072-702-1702.
Really, people are angry. That's all I have to say. People are miserable. They are angry. They are frustrated, and they take it out on either on the traffic or on the parking lot. But honestly, once you've done everything you need to do, get in your car and drive out. Why must you try to frustrate the next person by taking forever? And also, you are waiting for the spot. Why hoot? There's nothing I hate more than hooting. I hate it if it's a private car. I hate it if it's a taxi driver. Actually, when you hoot for me to move as fast as you want me to on traffic lights, you're just behaving like a taxi driver, and I will not. Bump me from the back if you want, fly over me if you want, but stop being impatient and stop being rude. Do not hoot.
Hi, Relebogile. So my view on the parking bay story is that people just park their cars without really checking they've parked well. And that causes an issue, especially when you drive a big car. Because now you can't just park, you'll be so close, you'll have to touch their doors. But if you just step out, make sure you park between your space, you're not stepping over the line of the next parking next to you, then everyone is happy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, folks, for all of your voice notes. I'm going to read a last one. Oh, wow. There's a person saying that Nikki is a disgusting person. She didn't just let the tires down. She stole. What if he had to get somewhere urgently? That is from Sibs. Another one says, hi. I've also noticed that people parking far off. It's not that they don't want to have their car scratched. It's because they can't drive. What do you mean they can't drive? Look, I can believe that there are some people who park far because where it's empty, because they don't want the hassle of having to squeeze into parking lots or parking bays. And if we're honest with one another, some of these new buildings, guys, have the worst parking bays. The spaces are tiny. Then it's not just the line. There's a column on the line. So now when you're trying to park, you have to think to yourself, if someone comes into this parking, I'm going to have to jump through the passenger seat, or everybody has to get out the car before you go into the parking bay. Daisy says, Relebogile, I love your show. I'm busy laughing alone in my car at a parking lot as we speak. Thank you so much for all your messages, voice notes, and calls.
This Easter weekend, 702 brings you more than great conversations. Soul, stories, and sounds to carry you through your long weekend. Whether you're on the road, gathered with family, or stealing a quiet moment for yourself, we're right there with you. From Good Friday through to Easter Monday. Enjoy special holiday programming to keep you connected, entertained, and completely at home. Join Kenny Maestri from 10 a.m., Bushaza Sibia from 2 p.m., Richard Nwamba from 5 p.m., and Notemba Madumo closing out your Easter Monday from 5 p.m. Wherever your Easter takes you, take 702 with you. Stream 702 live on the Prime Media Plus app. This Easter, 702 is with you. 702. Let's walk the talk.
It's time to save big. Don't miss out on Telkom's biggest sale of the year. Get unbeatable prices and incredible savings on smartphones, data, and more. Hurry! The Blue Bargain Sale is for a limited time. Call 10213, click telkom.co.za, download the My Telkom app, or visit any Telkom shop.
To walk the talk is to turn words into meaningful actions. And it's what we at 702 are committed to doing every day. We're also committed to following the rules set out by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission's Code of Conduct. To give you balanced programming, fair comment, and accurate news. But if we stumble along the way and you feel we're not living up to the code, let us know on comment@702.co.za. And if after that you're still not happy, you can direct your complaint in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission, PO Box 412365, Craig Hall 2024. For more, visit bccsa.co.za.
From promise to progress, South Africa is stepping into its new chapter of growth. Catch the Clement Manyatela Show live from the 6th South Africa Investment Conference tomorrow at the Sandton Convention Centre. Be part of the conversation as government and global partners come together to unlock capital, drive strategic partnerships and turn momentum into real economic outcomes. That's the Clement Manyatela Show live from the 6th South Africa Investment Conference tomorrow. South Africa Investment Conference, invest, partner, prosper on 702.
702 Movies.
18 minutes to 2 o'clock. Time for movies and what to stream with Adelaide Moyeng. Make sure you follow her on the socials. Founder of Movies and Stuff SA, 011 8830702, and the WhatsApp line 072 7021 702. Happy Monday, Adelaide. How are you doing?
Hi, how are you?
I am so excited for what we're talking about today because I am officially into the Mario Brothers. I'm officially in.
Welcome.
I'm within.
Welcome. It took you long enough, honestly.
Ma'am, I'm in. So let's talk then about the Super Mario Galaxy movie.
Right. So the Super Mario Galaxy movie is actually the sequel to 2023's box office hit, which is The Mario Brothers. And it's obviously starring Chris Pratt, who we know from the original first version of the Mario. Obviously, it also has Jack Black, who plays Bowser, and he's the villain in that first part of the movie, and it's just done really well. They even had a couple of really good nominated songs as well from the Mario movie itself, and of course now it's coming back as a sequel, and Mario and his friends are actually going into the Kingdom, and they're venturing into outer space, but now there's a new threat. On top of them having dealt with Bowser in the first film, Bowser actually has a son, and he's demanding that his father gets released. So now they all have to work together, Luigi and the gang, and they have to go and try and help him out. So based off of how the first one did so well, I really think the second one is going to be amazing. It's coming out tomorrow, and I know the kids are already on holiday, so that is a film that you could go and take your little one with. And honestly, it's not just for kids. I enjoy it as an adult. It's a really good film. I also wanted to preface that currently DSTV actually has a Holidays Kids Club section with a bunch of great animation films for kids to watch throughout the holidays that you can also enjoy as a parent with your child. They even have Bad Guys 2, it came out this year as well. It's obviously a sequel from Bad Guys 1, which is also really a great animation, so hilarious. You will enjoy as a parent, I promise. And they also have David as well, which is a South African animation film, and it worked with a lot of homegrown people that we know as well. About 400 artists across 32 countries, but mainly from South Africa. So that's also just, a couple of options for parents if they're trying to find out what to watch with their kids for the holidays.
All right. And that sounds like a great fun one. And I mean, I'm also, Adelaide, trying to watch classics as well. I'm going to give you the homework because sometimes we can't find the classics. So, for example, the original Cinderella or the original whichever, but we'll get on that another time. Let's talk about the drama.
Okay, so the drama is, I think, very highly anticipated because obviously we do know that it's starring Zendaya, who may or may not have gotten married recently. Obviously, Law Roach, her stylist, hinted at the fact that her and Tom Holland, who is Spider-Man, they actually got married. And so this film that she also does, she is getting married in said film. So I think it's very ironic. But anyway, the drama is actually starring Robert Pattinson, who we all know from the Twilight franchise, Batman, Mickey 17, and they play together as an engaged couple, and they are obviously going through the planning of the wedding and all of that. But unfortunately, in them doing this, there's a couple of things that are just unraveling the relationship as it stands. It becomes very stressful, and I think they start getting to know each other in a way that they didn't really expect. So it does have a little bit of, I think it is like a romantic drama, but obviously with that edge that A24 productions always give us. Like, with the type of films that they do that are very indie style, it's never just what you think it is. It's a very multi-layered film all the time. So I think it's going to be a really good hit. So far, it's been getting a lot of good reviews, and they've also been advertising it quite well. And obviously, they're also asking her about her wedding. So I think it just adds to the entire thing. They tied it in so well. The fact that both of them have, Zendaya and Tom Holland currently have the biggest films that are coming out this year.
Yep.
And one of them is about actually getting married. Is very cool and very funny as well. But yeah, that's something that you can definitely look out for. It's coming out on Friday on the 3rd of April in cinemas nationwide.
All right, and that sounds like definitely one to look out for as well. Particular, I haven't really watched much from Robert Pattinson, if I'm honest, since Twilight, which I got into much later. But I'm looking forward to see how his work is coming across. A person I am a fan of is Ryan Gosling. Let's talk Project Hail Mary.
Yes, Ryan Gosling is also a personal favorite for me. I really must say, over the past few years, he's been giving us individual projects or films that aren't necessarily tied to any franchise, which I really appreciate because he's giving us range, you know. He had previously done The Fall Guy and Barbie movie. So it's like a bunch of different films. He's tapping into sci-fi, he's tapping into drama, he's tapping into, you know, films that we wouldn't necessarily think he would get into. So Project Hail Mary is actually based on the best-selling novel by Andy Weir. And he also wrote the book that inspired the film The Martian, which a lot of you may know has Matt Damon. But in Project Hail Mary, he is a primary school teacher, and he's sent on a daunting one-man mission through space to prevent our son from dying. So it is a sci-fi thriller, but it does have a lot of comedy with a lot of high stakes. And I think it's quite funny because a lot of sci-fi movies are never funny. Like, it's obviously, the stakes are really high. There's nothing funny about it. But I think he's also trying to tap into that comedy side of him, which if you've watched Fall Guy, I really need to preface and emphasize that you have to watch Fall Guy. It is such a good action movie. And even with Fall Guy as well, there's a lot of humor that he brings to that. It's almost like he's trying to show us a little bit of his own personality with each character that he keeps doing in all of these films. But based off of how well and amazing something like Fall Guy was and Barbie, I have no hesitation thinking and saying and banking on the fact that Project Hail Mary is actually going to do really, really well.
Okay, Mike and Nick and Alice.
And Alice.
I'm like, what a random title. But when I saw who it's starring, I'm not surprised. Vince Vaughn is always in random films like that. I'm surprised Owen Wilson is not also part of the cast.
Right, because they are duos. They always do films together. And I think maybe that's also just part of their growth in splitting up and making sure that they also do individual projects that they love. I mean, I found it very funny that he had ended up doing Loki as well, you know. I didn't see him joining a Marvel franchise at any point, but he was also in Loki. So I think, Vince Vaughn is also making sure that he's also segueing into something different. So Mike and Nick and Alice is a film that currently dropped on Disney Plus. And it's actually a crime drama or crime comedy as well, with a very interesting twist. So it actually has time travel. So essentially, Nick and Nick are two crime buddies who are involved in a murder attempt that has gone completely wrong. But what makes this a very unique film is the fact that Nick and Nick are two people who are the same but from different timelines. And so Nick is trying to warn the other Nick that whatever he's about to do is not going to go well. So it just becomes this thing where, again, it's crime, it's time travel, which I've never really heard of as a concept. So I think it's something that will be really good to look forward to. There's a lot of twists, a lot of backstabbing as well. And that's part of the plot of the movie. But the way it is, if anyone has ever seen a film called Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which is just a legendary movie as well, I would say it's almost like that. If you like something like that, then I think you would definitely like this film. It's also starring James Marsden, who we all know from Paradise and the Sonic movies, as well as X-Men. And I also have to get on to remind people that you have to go and watch season 2 of Paradise. It is so good. Like, season 1 was brilliant, but season 2 is actually surpassing how good we thought it could actually get. Really, really great TV shows to also get into.
All right. And that is something that's so good to know. And now we all know the sad news about Showmax closing. What is the latest in terms of the dates? Like, what's going to happen?
Yeah. So I finally got an update on the Showmax discontinuation. So obviously, as we know, a few weeks ago, precisely on the 9th of March, if I'm not wrong, Showmax had told all of us as consumers and customers that they are discontinuing their standalone streaming service, who we all have grown to love as Showmax. And so they've given us an update, and the official date is the 30th of April. You've got exactly a month. You know, there's that clip of the lady who says, do you know you have 30 minutes? We literally have 30 days to consume as much Showmax content as we would like. But they did say that a lot of the content will migrate to the DSTV Stream app, which I don't have an issue with. I did predict it, if anybody does remember. I did predict that they would never get rid of that local content. They would maybe just migrate it to the app. But the problem that I have with DSTV Stream is the fact that it has so many technical problems with it. It's a very problematic app, honestly, especially if you're using it on your phone or on your TV. You constantly have to reload your details. Sometimes there's a network disconnection. So if they could fix those technicalities, I would be happy with the migration, because Showmax as a standalone app has been so brilliant in the way that they're formatted their content. They've made sure to also give us exclusive. I mean, currently Showmax is the only streaming platform that I know of that has the entire Harry Potter series. All of it. It's there. And you would only have to pay 100 Rand for this. So it's a really sad day. And I think I will also make sure to do a package for us where we can watch Showmax originals that are amazing, just to give them that extra boost on their way out. So I'll make sure to do that, actually.
There, I support you completely. There's a message I want to read. Afternoon, Relebogile. You may have suggested the British series on BBC One, but I found it the greatest psycho thriller that I have watched in a very long time, especially for people who think they have plot twists already figured out beforehand. The narrative focuses on the dangers of a post-truth society, examining themes of political interference, state-sanctioned disinformation, and the ethical implications of covert intelligence operations. A central plot point is the practice of correction, a fictional program used by intelligence agencies to edit live video feeds in real time to create false, admissible evidence and control public narratives. They don't share the name of the series, though. Does this sound like...
sounds like there is a show like that, but it's not on, the one that I know of is not on BBC, actually. There's a Korean drama called The Manipulation that has almost the same type of a narrative. It's currently on Disney Plus, where a man actually gets framed for a murder that he didn't do. But in actual fact, there's a CEO who uses AI and technology manipulation to frame the crime on him, and he sets out on a mission to basically prove his innocence. So the one that I know of is called The Manipulation, and it came out last year as well. I'll be
this
curious.
one they say
research.
It's a British series, so it is possible. We do know that there are adaptations. It could be from that one, but we definitely will be checking it out. Adelaide, we're gonna have to leave it there as we've run out of time. My goodness, I can't believe I lost track. Apologies.
You wouldn't pay for a large cappuccino and walk away with a tiny cup. So why pay for car insurance that gives you less? Rather switch to Outsurance, like 40-year-old Rafiq, who saves 899 Rand a month on his 2017 Nissan Navara 4x4.
899. That's not small change. It's more than 50% that I saved from my previous insurer.
How much could Outsurance save you? SMS cover to 30995. That's cover to 30995. Licensed insurer and FSP. TCs and information online.
Every Easter, alcohol accelerates harms for families in South Africa. Our roads become deadly. Alcohol fuels violence and destroys our communities. This Easter, let's reduce the harms caused by alcohol. Increase excise tax above inflation. Excise tax is protection. For more information, follow the true cost of alcohol.
Small business owners speak a language of their own, and it's a language MTN Business and 702 understand very well. That's why we're celebrating SMEs who walk that entrepreneurial talk in the 702 MTN Small Business Awards. From the townships to the suburbs and everywhere in between, small businesses are proving that big things can grow from bold ideas. If that sounds like your business or one you know, go to primemediaplus.com to enter or nominate them, because once we start talking about your business, who knows how much further it could go. The 702 MTN Small Business Awards. Let's talk shop. T's and C's apply.
702.
Travel.
4 minutes to 2 o'clock, and as we travel via the blue train to one of our favorite destinations, Iga Mutilska, editor of eagerjourneys.com, joins us. Iga, let's jump straight into it. Why the blue train, which is just so fancy?
Yes, good afternoon. So wonderful to chat to you again. One of the stops along the blue train, of course, along the 54-hour journey and 1,600 odd kilometers is Kimberley. And we know that it's called the Diamond City because back in 1866, a young boy found a shiny pebble on the banks of the Orange River, and it turned out to be a 21.25 carat diamond called Eureka. And then a few years later, an 83 carat stone was found nearby as well. And then that's what drew that frenzy of about some 50,000 fortune seekers to what back then was just a small little farm in the Northern Cape. And so it's wonderful that along one of these stops along the blue train journey, you can actually go and visit the Kimberley Big Hole Museum.
So if we then are to share some information for people that love history, what would be special about them stopping at Kimberley?
I mean, it's absolutely fascinating because it's one of South Africa's first industrial hubs. Imagine this, it was the first city in the Southern Hemisphere to build an electric streetlight in 1882, even before London. We also had the first automatic telephone exchange in the country right here, as well as the first stock exchange in 1881. And then naturally, of course, we know that this is one of the largest hand-dug excavations. And beyond that, it's also the cradle of aviation. So in South Africa, it was home to the country's first flying school, which opened in 1913 and trained the first 10 military pilots who would eventually form South Africa's Air Force. So many firsts are found in Kimberley in the Northern Cape.
Talk to us about the mine museum and the old town and what makes it so special.
I mean, it's fascinating to think that it's one of the deepest cavities that were ever excavated by human hands using picks and shovels. It's 17 hectares and it measures 463 meters wide and 240 meters deep. It's filled with aquamarine waters, and you can actually stand on a cantilever platform overlooking the big hole. And what's great about it is that the size of this cantilever platform gives you an idea of what each of the individual stakes were in terms of size. So these were each of the stakes that were given to each of the miners who came here seeking their fortunes. And of course, the old town, many of the buildings there are all original. So they were moved to the site to save them from demolition. And you'll even see a church that was shipped all the way from Europe, various kinds of old shops, a functioning Victorian pub, so to really give you that true taste of that 19th century atmosphere of what it must have been like to be in Kimberley at the time. And of course, you can see a selection of some of the diamonds that were found here. You can learn all about the shafts, how they were sunk. You can even go into a replica of a mine shaft to sort of get an idea of what those conditions would have been like, to see the implements, the equipment that they used, the dynamite. So it's really such an educational way to sort of take you back in time to those diamond rush days.
Which makes the blue train trip even more exciting, that you get all these added experiences in Kimberley with the mining shafts and the diamonds themselves. For those who missed part one, this is part two of our conversation around the blue train. Head over to primemediaplus.com and then, of course, more from eagerjourneys.com with Iga Mutilska. On that note, it's 2 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good afternoon, I'm Bali Dlamini. Vehicles have been torched and businesses looted during demonstrations against the installation of a so-called Nigerian king in Gukombo in the Eastern Cape today. Police fired rubber bullets to disperse crowds after the protest turned violent. Various organizations took to the streets today in what was a peaceful march, calling for action to be taken, saying the coronation was unacceptable. Social media outrage erupted recently after videos and Photos went viral showing Solomon Ogbona Eziko being crowned in a lavish ceremony. Chief Tlantisi Tau, Amatole Local House of Traditional and Khoisan Leaders chairperson, says they're offended by that coronation.
An Igbo a national from Nigeria was coronated as a king. Now, our people, including traditional leaders, are really pissed off with that because it undermines the sovereignty of our kingship here, which is led by King Vululwande Sandi. This is the Xhosa territory. We are the descendants of King Palo.
The MK party has lost its bid to prevent former National Director of Public Prosecutions Shamila Batoyi from receiving her pension payout. The party had approached the Gauteng High Court citing alleged misconduct by Batoyi as the reason to halt that payment. It wanted an inquiry to first be established to look into Batoyi's conduct during her appearance before the Nkabinde inquiry. Batoyi walked out of proceedings at that inquiry, which is looking into Andrew Chauke's fitness to hold office. The party's Mzwanele Manyi says they are still waiting for a written judgment with reasons from the court before deciding on a way forward.
It's on record that Batoyi has, for the past, in fact, the whole tenure has been a disastrous tenure. We differ on people on many things, but on this one, I have not come across anybody that is holding Batoyi up and above and saying she did the best, she did everything. She has just actually brought the whole NPA into disrepute, actually.
The TRC Cases Inquiry has welcomed the High Court's decision to dismiss an application by former Presidents Jacob Zuma as well as Thabo Mbeki to remove Justice Sisi Khampepe as its chair. This after the former presidents petitioned the court to review and set aside Khampepe's decision to remain in her role. The Commission says the ruling marks the final hurdle in securing evidence from the former presidents regarding their roles in delaying the prosecution of TRC cases during their tenure. Dimakatso Leshoro reports.
The TRC Commission has previously labelled former Presidents Jacob Zuma and Thabo Mbeki's legal challenge a delay tactic. The two former statesmen have been opposed to giving evidence before Khampepe, alleging she is biased. Testimony before the Commission has directly linked Mbeki to actively playing a role in preventing the prosecution of former security branch members in exchange for a stay in prosecution of ANC leaders. The Khampepe Commission has had evidence from 30 witnesses. Commission spokesperson Lionel Adendorf says the judgment allows the Commission to continue its work.
We are certain that this was the last hurdle after so many attempts to delay our work, to frustrate our work, and that now we can continue with our work uninterrupted.
However, it's not clear yet if the two presidents will appeal the High Court's decision, which could delay the work of the Commission even further. Dimakatso Leshoro, Eyewitness News.
Agricultural groups are urging the Mineral Resources Department to urgently consider a temporary adjustment to the fuel pricing mechanism in order to stabilize supply. This call comes ahead of an expected fuel price hike this week, driven by the conflict. The organizations warn of emerging supply constraints, particularly in rural areas, with a survey of farmers and fuel retailers pointing to growing pressure at farm level. Nkosikhona Malingabnisi reports.
A joint study by AgriSA and Agbiz shows constrained fuel supply across several regions, with growing rationing as retailers limit volumes amid uncertainty over replenishment. The groups warn this is starting to disrupt farming and agribusiness operations at a critical point in the production cycle. They say the current situation is driven by a mix of global oil volatility, supply chain challenges and market behavior, and stress that clear pricing signals are now crucial. Theo Boshoff is the CEO of the Agricultural Business Chamber.
So as a result, to stabilize supply, we've asked government if we can maybe review the fuel levy to ask for temporary relief, as well as also more regular, not the monthly price adjustments, because the thinking is that would essentially remove any incentive to stockpile or panic buy if the price is only going to go up at a later stage.
Meanwhile, Western Cape Premier Alan Winde has written to national government calling for urgent intervention to prevent alleged fuel hoarding, warning it threatens key sectors like agriculture, which accounts for more than half of the country's exports. Nkosikhona Malingabnisi, Eyewitness News.
And Norway says it will temporarily slash its taxes on petrol and diesel to counter rising prices as the Middle East war disrupts global energy supplies. As of April 1st, the tax on petrol will be reduced by 7 rand a litre and diesel by 4 rand a litre. Parliament in Norway voted in favour of a reduction on March the 26th. The tax cuts also apply to mineral oils used in fishing as well as hunting. Gold is trading at $4,528.58 an ounce. The rand is at 17.19 to the dollar, 22.75 to the pound, 19.75 to the euro, and Brent crude oil is at $115.39 a barrel.
In Sandton, accident scene on the M1 southbound just after Caller Drive has been cleared, so traffic should be back to normal shortly. At this stage, traffic remains a bit sluggish on the M1 south from Greyston to Killarney Bend, while if you're traveling in Edenville, there's bumper-to-bumper traffic heading towards Bedford View N3 southbound between Modderfontein Road and the Kilulis interchange.
It's a partly cloudy afternoon in Gauteng with showers and thundershowers expected. Temperatures have peaked at highs of between 27 and 30 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour, vehicles have been looted during demonstrations against the installation of a so-called Nigerian king in Gukombo in the Eastern Cape.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Relebogile Mabotja
Live, streaming countrywide
on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
Minutes after 2 o'clock, the second and final hour of 7:02 afternoons with me, Relebogile Mabotja. And for those of you that were wondering about the British series, thank you so much to the 3 people who responded. It is called The Capture, the British series that was recommended on the WhatsApp line. It's called The Capture. Coming up in this hour of the show, we're going to have the Naked Scientist with Dr. Chris Smith. Make sure your science-related questions are in early so you're at the front of the queue. But before that, we have parenting and parents. We're talking about navigating parallel parenting. Ayanda Tetiana will join us for that conversation to explain what parallel parenting is all about. But those of you, particularly in co-parenting relationships, please make sure you tune in, or there are different individuals that are a part of parenting your child. This conversation in particular is for all of you. Get in touch with us. 011 883 0702. SMS us 31702. Tweet at Relebogile M at Radio 702 using the hashtag 702 afternoons and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702.
Parenting and Parents
on 702.
Parenting and Parents time on 702. And this feature is brought to you by Sanofi, together against RSV. And we look forward to chatting to all of you around parallel parenting and what it's all about, how you navigate it, with parenting coach, family therapist, and behavioral science consultant, Ayanda Tetiana. 011 883 0702 in the WhatsApp line, 072 702 1702. Ayanda, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's my absolute pleasure, and hi to everyone and the listeners as well.
Ayanda, what is parallel parenting?
So in parenting, it's already a whole dynamic when you have to be raising your children, right? But what usually makes it more tricky is if your relationship with your partner is also chaotic, and there's a whole lot of dynamics there, if there's been separations and stuff like that. So when we're talking parallel parenting, we're talking getting to a point where you understand that, listen, despite our differences, despite our disappointments, let's prioritize a child, and therefore we become very intentional to say, let's sort out the systems and make sure that our child has their best in terms of both parents. And that means being very intentional about how you communicate, minimal communication, two different households, and the other parent is not necessarily involved in what happens in the other household. So it's very intentional in terms of, listen, our situation doesn't work necessarily, but let's make sure in the interest of the child, the system makes sense and the child is always heard and feeling safe.
So if I understand you correctly, parallel parenting would be the part where we say, okay, whatever we were trying to do before is not working, be it we're in a relationship or we're trying to do things family style. There are still those blended families where they'll go have dinner, they'll even go on holiday together. But in this case, they're saying, let's keep it low conflict. We keep it to the bare minimum. We only speak about the child. It's almost like business-like, if I'm to put it like that, in a way that is beneficial to the child's interests.
Absolutely. If you think about co-parenting, right, the whole key around co-parenting is that there's cooperation. So there's a whole lot of engagement between the two parents. So with parallel parenting, it's literally like, listen, the cooperation doesn't work. So even like communication, you have to be doing it via like your written mail, whether it's WhatsApp or email. There's apps that you can use. But we understand that, listen, things are not gelling between us, and we're making as low effort to make sure that there's least conflict as possible.
Okay, and the scenarios that you have seen where parallel parenting is advisable, is it where parents are not getting along? And would it possibly also include if, let's say, a single mother is is raising her children with her parents and they participate as well? Would that also apply?
Well, I think with the parents, hopefully, maybe with the in-laws or the parents of the other child, right?
Yes.
But usually it's more practical if it's between two exes or two people who are in a separation, and at this stage there's still a whole lot of triggers between them that makes things just get out of control, right? So let me make an example. If you're talking co-parenting, you're talking high communication, as I said, shared decisions. So if I'm in a co-parenting, whatever my schedules with my child in terms of their routines, their diets and stuff like that, it's something I would constantly be communicating, right? But with parallel parenting, there's no such communication. If the child is at the dad's house, whatever the rules are there, I will need to exclude myself from whatever happens as much as possible so that I do not add to the chaos and make it worse, basically.
So is it almost you keep things to the bare essentials? So you're not asking who's that woman at your house. You're not asking, I heard you're seeing somebody. You are sticking to what time am I fetching our son, or how was he feeling this morning because he's got a bit of a temperature. You keep it to the bare essentials.
So let's say, for instance, in our parenting plan, as we work with some of the parents, parent A is going to be focused on school-related issues. Parent B is focused on medical-related issues. And then even in just how you communicate, it's not really are you picking up the child, or it's just you giving a point. So the child is feeling ill, please make sure to give them their cough medicine. That's it.
Okay. Now, if we are, because I think when you start to talk about parenting plan, many people have not necessarily found themselves in situations where they've drawn one up. Maybe they're not even aware they need a parenting plan. Can you explain some of the things that need to be included in a parenting plan? And the ideal scenario I would imagine is that you don't want to wait to have to go to the family courts to have those discussions. And I also assume the parenting plan does not necessarily include maintenance, or it does. Maybe you can advise if it's something, for example, if the child is at whoever's house, that's the person that must take care of diapers or milk.
Yeah, so it will look different depending, obviously, on the age of the children. I know some parents are doing the 2 weeks in, 2 weeks out. So that also looks really different. But the idea is to have almost like a blueprint that says, what is happening in terms of holidays, what is happening in terms of weekends with the children. If it's whoever's birthday, like the parent's birthday, like my parents' birthday as the biological parent, where are the children going to? It makes it so much easier so that when there's like these little things, you know, like right now it's holiday time, already in advance we would have known that, okay, this short holiday, the children go to whoever, and it includes things like just a little bit of some of the schedule in terms of, you know, some children may have issues that they need a constant monitoring. So with a particular child, maybe they need to sleep a little early. Some of those routines are included as well. But usually the parenting plan is really lovely because you as a parent have to sit down and say, this is our dynamic and this is how we can and work with that. And you can even go as far as to talking about what type of apps can you download. There's some really cool apps that you can actually get that help the communication in terms of just reminder, it's whoever's birthday or this coming holiday is coming up and it's my turn to babysit, you know, and stuff like that.
Let's talk about boundaries, which I think can be a major problem in many relationships. And we talk about your high conflict divorces, for example, high conflict breakups. What are some of the boundaries you think need to be in place? I have friends who are in very challenging co-parenting relationships. And the advice that I sometimes give to them is, and you can fully correct me here, but I will say to them, if you each had a new person in your lives, what would those boundaries be? And that's what they should be, in my mind. Yeah. So if, for example, the father of your child or the mother of your child has a key to your place, can pop by anytime because it's quite fluid, spend time with the kid. If there was another person in that relationship, you wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, so that one, you basically have to bear in mind that new person that is in your life. Are they going to have an issue, for instance, with just finding someone dropping in without notification? So those are the constant conversations that we have to be having as parents as we get more and more comfortable with the idea around blended families. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing, really, when you think about, you know, if you have a healthy dynamic, you know, the children have all this extra support, you know, from the stepmom, from the biological mom, from the stepdad. And if we can make it work, that'd be great. And unfortunately, that's not always our reality. So the boundaries that need to be communicated, and I can tell you in parallel parenting, that's usually not even a thing, which is why it's so important to understand that's minimal communication, meaning if I have a diet requirement in my house to say my children don't eat a particular brand of food, they don't drink a particular cold drink, once they go to dad's house, even if they're watching TV until 12 o'clock, I need to be as little as possible involved. I think what's really important is to have a distinction between, is this about the child or is it about my feelings as well? So just playing around with those dynamics and trying to say, okay, at each instance, when things are happening that really affect the child, then how do you communicate? And I always say to parents, sometimes, you know, within our small little separations, our issues, especially for the first few years. I mean, I've gone through relationships that have broken up with his children, and for the first few years it was really bad, but now it's 13 years later, we can laugh and talk about stuff, and it's much more easier to parent. You know, you could rather add someone else who's a family member who can then come in, and then if there's difficult conversations to have that person be the one to reach out to both parties and say, hey, you know what, in terms of the child's well-being, maybe let's consider 1, 2, 3, 4. You know, I'll always lean into having that village around our parenting and just our emotional support in terms of whatever we're going through that can always help and step in.
Let's talk about then some of these absolute basics that maybe parents don't think about when it comes to discussing the parenting plan in this parallel parenting where you're trying to keep things to a bare minimum, and you want to rather preempt as opposed to wait for situations. So let me give an example of something I heard this morning where a woman took her child to the emergency room only to find that the father's new girlfriend was on the system as the mother. They didn't tell her that the child had gone on an emergency room visit at the hospital. Now she struggled to get the child, processed and stuff. Granted, this is in the US, but the principle still applies. So things like emergency contacts, if the school can't get hold of both of us, who's the next person, what are some of those really overlooked details that can cause even more conflict if not addressed upfront and handled with care?
Yeah, so that one makes it very tricky because obviously in terms of parenting, that would be very important. So for instance, if you're registering your child at school, the next of kin or whoever you contact, as you'd expect as a parent, the biological parent to be the one who's on the list. But, and I want to say this again, when you understand that already, when we get to the point where we bring in parallel parenting, there's already a whole lot of dynamics. And it's personal, it's resentment, it's all of those things. So I think both parents have a responsibility to try and minimize as much as they can that conflict. But what I've really seen, even if it's you as an individual and something is happening like that, you kind of have to take a breather so that you don't make it worse. Because yes, you would be upset, you're trying to process your child, but for whatever reason, you understand the dynamics of your relationships. And I always say, sometimes in co-parenting, and sometimes you have to just, even if you're furious about certain things, just to make things work, you don't have to picky every little detail, because already you know that, listen, we're not living like we used to, we're not in the same household anymore. So you have to pick and choose your battles, really, to be honest.
What are the cons of parallel parenting? What are the possible downsides of parallel parenting? Because I feel like some people struggle with limited communication. They struggle with need to know basis information. They kind of wanna what's the word? Get a bit more than just what time are you picking up the child?
Yeah. Well, I mean, when it's already, the milk is already spilled, there's not much you can do. I would say one thing I really find to be a pro is that at this point, right, you are admitting that there's a whole lot of chaos happening in your relationship, but this kind of system is like an adaptation to what already is there. And then you're saying, in terms of the child's well-being, let's make sure that we reduce stress, in terms of just exposing them to us having conflict as parents. You're trying to at least build a home where the child is not experiencing all this instability. And it's little things. It's like, oh, why did you get bought a new phone? We agreed no phones at a certain age. And maybe that's in or it's not in the parenting plan. But when those kind of things come up, in this kind of situation, you take a breather and you're like, okay, it's fine, And for me, most importantly, I just think that then the children can have relationship with both parents. So the emotional intelligence that it then requires for the parent who's in this situation is very important, so that it can say, this is about the child. This is about the child. Consistently remind yourself this is about the child, and take a step back when it comes to certain things.
This is about the child. That is the difficult part of the whole thing, especially if the individuals are finding themselves still trying to heal and navigate that new space. I truly feel for people who've been married for a long time and don't know a life outside of being with that person, and now you're trying to figure it out. For the person who is listening, what advice would you give to them if they are finding themselves in a high conflict situation with the father or mother of their child? Maybe they're not agreeing. Maybe one feels like the child is being used as leverage. What do you advise? And at what point would you say, I would not even recommend parallel parenting at this stage? I would recommend mediation.
I mean, if your child is consistently exposed to arguments or hostility, if your child is in almost a space that's unsafe, you know, I know there's also usually a whole lot of control, manipulation, unresolved resentment that usually stems from whatever has happened in the relationship. It's our responsibility as parents when we get to a point where these things end. And I'm saying this knowing how hard it is, and having had my own personal experience. It's not easy, right? But you have to say, in the interest of the child, how do I move to the next level? The level that's going to allow my child not to be in situations where they are going to feel like, oh, am I choosing between spending holiday at dad's or mom's? Oh, but I really want to. Child should never have to choose between parents. We should never have to manipulate our children to say, oh, and you come back from dad and you're happier, or, all of those. And even us as we parent our children, stay away from manipulating our children by buying things and making them want to spend more time with us. So when you get to a point, because, okay, firstly, I want to say, because in the bigger picture, what we are talking about is the overall well-being of the child. Every single little thing that's happening in our homes has a psychological effect on our children in terms of them feeling loved, in terms of them feeling wanted. It affects how they perform at school, which I think every parent, whatever your resentment issues, whatever, that should give you a pause and be like, listen, I might have all this unresolved pain, but in that interest, in that bigger picture of the child, if there's issues, if I constantly find myself fighting with my partner, I see my children being uncomfortable to bring up their dads or their moms, then I need to know that now it's time to look for help. And sometimes we resort to something like this parallel parenting kind of plan, and you just seek out. And as long as you're willing to both sit down and say, let's put together, for instance, the parenting plan, it just makes it so much easier, because then our children start to feel like everything in terms of both households is about them. It's no longer just my mom and my dad don't like each other. What did I do to, children take all of these things that are happening between us and actually make it about them, and it shows up in how they behave.
At what point or age would you advise that the children themselves can be included in the parenting plan, as in them being asked, who would you like to spend weekends with, if that's even advisable? Because I think kids do reach an age where they see things for themselves and they can decide who they want to spend more time with. What would you advise a parent does in that situation if their teenager's like, nope, don't want to go there?
So that dynamic is very tricky, really, because in some instances, maybe the one parent has a little more money than the other parent, and then the children want to go there because they'll have pizzas and they'll have all these access to stuff. So in those kind of environments, I would always say, let's not just focus on what the child wants. Let's give the children fair access to both parents. And sometimes what that means is you as a parent who may not have certain things, you need to be very intentional to say, what is the impact that you have? How do you model and influence your children? Yes, I may not necessarily have a lot of money maybe, but when my children come to my house, I can go with them to the library, we can go to a public swimming pool, there's different dynamics that usually come with that. So I never really advise asking the children directly, because then the parents also getting to manipulate that situation. Giving the children access to both parents equally is what is actually more fair.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ayanda, for chatting us through the parallel parenting, something I didn't know anything about until we were prepping for this show, which is a good alternative for co-parents that are not managing with being that involved with one another on our parenting and parents feature. Now, have you heard of the respiratory syncytial virus, or RSV? Most parents haven't, even though 2 out of 3 babies will be infected by it before their first birthday. So for most babies, RSV causes a mild cold-like symptoms, but for some of them, it can get worse and lead to bronchiolitis or pneumonia, which might require a trip to the doctor or even lead to hospitalization. Sanofi is working to support families during RSV season by sharing guidance on simple preventative steps to keep your baby safe. It's just after 2:30. Time for your latest Eyewitness News headlines. Good afternoon.
Thanks, Relebogile. Good afternoon. 12 vehicles have been torched during a protest in Gugombo in the Eastern Cape today. The demonstration, led by several groups, including March and March, along with traditional leaders, was held in opposition of the coronation of a so-called Nigerian king. The protest began peacefully but later turned violent following unconfirmed reports that a demonstrator had been stabbed. The MK party has lost its bid to prevent former National Director of Public Prosecutions, Shamila Batoyi, from receiving her pension payout. The party had approached the Gauteng High Court, citing alleged misconduct by Batoyi as a reason to halt the payment. It wanted an inquiry to first be established to look into Batoyi's conduct during her appearance before the Ngabinde inquiry. And agricultural groups are urging the Mineral Resources Department to urgently consider a temporary adjustment to the fuel pricing mechanism to stabilize supply. This call comes ahead of an expected fuel price hike this week, driven by the Middle East conflict. The organizations warn of emerging supply constraints, particularly in rural areas. Those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 3 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Well, at this stage in Edenville, heading towards Bedford View, there's bumper-to-bumper traffic on Modderfontein Road. This is rather on the N3 South between Modderfontein Road and the Kilulis. Interchange in Melrose. Also, slow-moving traffic M1 southbound from Grayston Drive to Killarney Bend. Look out for those faulty traffic lights in Kyalami at Kenilworth and Kyalami Boulevard, as well as in Midrand at Old Pretoria Road and Olifantsfontein Road. If you come across any other traffic issues, kindly WhatsApp us on 072-702-1702.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Africa Milani.
Weekday mornings,
4 to 6.
And which areas are you going to be focusing on, I suppose, acutely this coming weekend? Which border posts are going to present more of a challenge to the authority than others?
The ports that we'll be putting more effort on are land ports. And in this instance, it's going to be 3 key ports. It's going to be, Lebombo, a port of entry, Bait Bridge, port of entry, together with Maseru, a port of entry. Those are the 3 key that we are going to be putting more effort on.
Dr. Mike Masiapato is a commissioner with the Border Management Authority.
Africa Milani.
4 to 6 on 702.
Aziz Shege, be in the game. Show your love for D-Ski with Hollywood Bets. We're taking the soccer season to new heights. You could win a share of 4 million rand in cash and prizes, including an all-new Toyota Hilux double cab or Toyota Starlet Cross. All you have to do is bet 10 rand or more on any soccer fixture online or at your nearest branch. Bet now and strike for glory.
T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
Every Easter, alcohol accelerates harms for families in South Africa. Our roads become deadly. Alcohol fuels violence and destroys our communities. This Easter, let's reduce the harms caused by alcohol. Increase excise tax above inflation. Excise tax is protection. For more information, follow the true cost of alcohol.
The Money Show.
Weekday evenings at 6.
Government hosting the 6th Investor Conference. People from 31 countries are due to come here and hopefully will be pledging money that will be invested in our economy. The Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition is Parks Taug.
Well, firstly, I should say that from the commitments that have been made in previous investment conferences, a lot of these have been translated into actual practical projects on the ground. In fact, 43% of those commitments have been achieved.
The Money Show
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
For 20 years, ABSA has been a proud sponsor of the ABSA Cape Epic. And now they're giving you a chance to take your grit to the gravel. Join Team ABSA Cycling on Strava. Upload your rides and you could win one of 2 ABSA Cape Epic 2027 team entries. Because your story matters. ABSA is a registered FSP.
coming up
On 702 Drive with John Perlman.
702 Drivers coming up from 3 to 6 p.m. with John Pullman. Happy Monday. John, what are your parking bay and parking lot etiquette tips or pet peeves?
So I think it should be a rule that people who have very small cars, like
Yes.
little Kias and Fiat Pandas and so on, should be required to put a cone on the roof. Because how many times do you drive along there?
You think there's a free parking?
And you think I think it's an empty bay, and then there's a little car there.
Somebody actually sent a message.
I think it should be the law. And in fact, when you come in the garage, they should open the boot. They must check that you've got your cone. Otherwise, you park somewhere else.
Somebody on the WhatsApp line said, can we please talk about people with the jelly tot cars? That's how
Yes.
they describe them, saying you can't have a jelly tot car that's tiny and not park within the lines. Like, that doesn't make sense.
Oh, yes, that would... Well, no, I think that's unfair. Excuse me. Any parking over the lines is the thing. But, yeah, particularly when the garage is packed, those little cars, please, a cone.
So we can just see.
Or one of those wooden giraffes in the boot, maybe. But I think a cone is easier.
And then what is for you, the maximum waiting time? If somebody's gotten in their car and you're waiting to park, what is a fair time for that person to get themselves together? I'm saying 3 minutes is reasonable. Anything more, like from when they clip their safety belt, because people still want to check messages, see their next, 5 minutes is pushing it.
I don't really know because we are enslaved by our phones. You've maybe come out of meeting, you look at the thing, and then maybe there's something on your message that demands your attention. That a family thing or kid who's come out of school early. It's the school saying your child is unwell. I mean, there's stuff happens. I'm not too harsh on that.
All right, just don't hoot at the person to hurry
But
up,
then you
guys.
must put your cone on the roof if you're going to delay. Maybe you need to carry 2 cones.
The airport got it right. You know the lights that show you?
Yes,
Then you can
yes.
see there's definitely no parking here.
one.
Keep it moving. All right,
When
what's
they
coming?
work, it's brilliant.
Yeah, oh gosh, that's the other problem. What's coming up on your show today?
So, good afternoon, everyone. I mean, the fuel issue is a big one. We continue not only to be concerned about the fuel that we ourselves need. Diesel is a particular problem, but if we cannot move goods around the country, we have problems of a different nature as well, particularly food and inputs into the making of food. Gavin Kelly is with the Road Freight Association. He will have an absolutely clear-eyed view of where we stand. We'll have him on the show 10 to 4. Very strange stuff happening down in East London, where there have been riots around the coronation of an Igbo king. And I don't say the Igbo king because everyone says a king, but the Nigerian people living in that part of the Eastern Cape conducted some kind of ceremony, and the response has been very, very intense today. So we want to find out more about that. Our EWN colleague Babalon Denze is down there, and he'll give us his take on that shortly after 3. And then Relebogile, with all the turbulence going on in the world, relationships that you have with individual countries are crucial. And today we're delighted to host the Japanese ambassador, Fumio Shimizu. And he's going to talk to us about Japan, our trade relations, our business relations, but also get his perspective on a very turbulent world order, because Japan is a major economic powerhouse, part of the G7, and we look forward to hosting him after 4.
All right, that sounds super exciting. 702 Drive with John Pullman coming up from 3 to 6 p.m.
702.
The Naked Scientist.
20 minutes to 3 o'clock, time for The Naked Scientist. Get your questions in 011 883 0702 and the WhatsApp line 072 702 1702. Happy Monday, Dr. Chris. How are you?
Happy Monday. I'm very good, actually. Good to see you back, because
Yes.
we missed each other last time, didn't we?
We did indeed, but I shall definitely make up for it with the number of science questions that are
Ooh,
coming
good.
in your direction. I have to ask a question. Can everybody parallel park? Or are there some people who actually just cannot?
Well, if you think about it, I mean, my son was asking me about this because he was asking me how to drive and learning to drive. He's got his driving test coming up in a couple of months' time. And I like John's idea about the traffic cone on top of the car, by the way. Brilliant suggestion. Although I'm not sure how popular this would be because some people would steal the cones just to wind people up, wouldn't they? But we all know from looking at the evidence from car parks that people's parking ability varies, doesn't it? And some people are certainly more accomplished than others. And some people, I think it's just the coordination involved, isn't it? It's sort of working out where the car's going to go. Because when you're parking, you're not just working out where to put the front of the car. You've got to work out where the back is going to go. Now, most people don't think about driving like that. They think about just driving in a straight line and pointing the car where they want to go. And they forget that the back of the car is following them. And when you're going into a parking space, backwards or forwards, you've got to think not just where the front's going to go, but where it's going to end up, and therefore where the back of the car's going to end up. And it's actually quite complicated to model that in your mind, and not everyone is as good as that others.
All right, thank you so much for that one, Dr. Chris. Some of the questions that are coming through. Let's start with Tabang in Vanderbijl Park. Relebogile, please ask the naked scientist whether a microchip from a phone can be used in a computer or a remote controller.
Oh, they almost always are. And many of the chips running the vast majority, probably 90+% of the handsets that are out there, are designed by the computer company ARM, based in Cambridge, not far from where I'm sitting today in the UK. And they are based on an architecture called RISC, which was first conceived of in the 1980s. And it's an incredibly efficient chip design because it does a lot of computing grunt for much less power consumption, which makes it ideal for mobile devices. But that was originally conceived not for mobile devices. They were 2 decades away from being invented when they came up with those chips. They were actually designed for computers, and some of the first Acorn Archimedes computers ran on those similar sorts of things. So yes, you'll find the same sorts of chips, the same sorts of chip architectures running in handsets, in computers, and many other kinds of devices that you see that involve some kind of processing.
Thank you, Tabang, for that question. Another one says, Dr. Chris, why do most men have shorter legs and necks compared to ladies regardless of BMI? My man is taller than me. He's 1.8 meters and I'm 1.6. He weighs 100 kilograms and I weigh 55 kilograms. And we are 3 years apart in age. Him born in the 70s and me in the 80s.
I think that's probably a little bit of a stereotype in saying that all men or all women fit a certain shape. We know if you just look around the world, you're going to see a different variety of shapes and sizes, which is going to vary by sex. Men tend to be a different shape than women, but also by race and also by geography. If you go to the far north in areas where it's freezing cold and look at Inuit people, you'll find they're on average shorter and squatter than people from, say, equatorial regions. And there's a really good bunch of reasons for that. That if you're very big, then you have a big surface area to lose heat. And if you're more short and squat and compact, then you can be extremely strong, but also conserve heat better. So really it's going to come down to the bottlenecking of genetics, where you live, what your size of your parents is, and also what your nutritional status is, because the biggest determinant, having effectively the plans in front of you for how to build a human, your genetic code, you only get to build those plans to their full potential if you have the raw materials to do it, and that means being well nourished. So there's a whole range of different factors, and I don't think it's as simple as saying men are this shape and women are this shape. Men are on average bigger than women because, not least, men have testosterone, and testosterone encourages stronger muscles and a bigger frame, a bigger skeleton on which to hang those muscles. So men are on average bigger than women, but not exclusively so, and there are plenty of women around who are much bigger than men and vice versa. But on average, you'll tend to find blokes are bigger than women, and there is enormous genetic variation, and that means geographical variation.
All right, we've got your voice notes coming through on 072 702 1702.
Afternoon. I would like to know from the naked scientist, how long does vitamins or minerals stay in the blood system? Let's say I'm eating in a fruit or a vegetable. How long does those minerals from that fruit or vegetable stay in my system? Maybe 24 hours or a day or a week. Thank you.
What a great question. And the answer is, like all these things, it varies. And the biggest determinant is whether you're a fat-soluble vitamin or a water-soluble vitamin. Because, believe it or not all vitamins are made equally. Some are the kinds of molecules that dissolve well in water. Others are the kinds of molecules that love dissolving in fat. Molecules like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K dissolve well in fats, whereas the others, especially the B group of vitamins, dissolve well in water. Vitamin C, another example, very water soluble. Now, fat soluble vitamins, because the body has a large amount of fat stores where our energy is stored, if you take excess of those fat soluble vitamins, you can build up a reservoir of them in your fat. And this will slowly release them back into the bloodstream for extended periods of time. And vitamin D is a really good example of this happening. We make vitamin D most of the time through our skin. About 80% of the vitamin D in the body comes from sun exposure on our skin. You need about 20 minutes to half an hour of sun exposure on skin a day to get your vitamin D needs. Bit more if you've got black skin, bit less if you've got white skin because of the attenuation of the ultraviolet by melanin, which makes skin darker. That vitamin D is stored in your fat cells. There are specific places it can be stored, and it can then be used for an extended period of time when there's less sunshine around. And if you follow a person when they go into periods of bad weather or they live in high latitudes, for example, you can see that their vitamin D levels slowly drop as they go through winter and then get very, very low towards the end of winter. So that would be an example of a vitamin that you keep in your body and can store and use for long periods of time, maybe months. On the other hand, vitamin C or B vitamins like thiamine, which is vitamin B1, these are very, very easy to dissolve in water, and that means they're easy to get into your body. They're not ever going to poison you because they very easily leave your body, and they leave your body in urine. And cynics often say if you buy multivitamins from the chemist, you are spending a lot of money making very expensive urine, because a lot of the vitamins that you buy in the supermarket are non-fat soluble vitamins. They're water soluble. They will go straight down the toilet. And so that's why it's better to eat a sensible, balanced diet, and to do that regularly, because you cannot store water-soluble vitamins. They leave your body really quickly in minutes, hours to days at most, and for that reason you have to top them up regularly, which is why a balanced diet is a good idea.
Thank you so much for that question. Let's go to Poloso in Centurion. Go ahead.
Thanks, Relay. Hi, Dr. Chris. I just want to find out, why is it that most of the cleaning products are alkaline?
Most of the cleaning products are alkaline, okay?
I know exactly what you mean. And a good example of this is, for instance, sodium hydroxide, which is used to unblock drains. One of the reasons is the chemistry of these things. Soaps and detergents, the way they work is that they are very often highly alkaline because they are weak organic acids, which actually means they can function as bases. So they tend to be quite alkaline because they ionize and react with calcium in the water to make scum and that kind of thing. But because it's got an organic tail on it, that base acid actually is not a very strong acid, but it's quite a good base. And so most of these soaps do end up chemically alkaline, but they're very good at degrading proteins. Sodium hydroxide is great for unblocking drains because it denatures proteins and makes them fall to pieces. So for that reason, a lot of these things are, through their chemistry, naturally alkaline, but actually functionally they're very good because they are so alkaline at doing what they do. And unclogging your shower and breaking down hair by sodium hydroxide is the classic example of that.
Thank you so much, Poloso, for that question. Semi in Centurion as well. Go ahead, Semi.
Good evening, Relebogile. Thank you.
Yes.
Hello. Normally, doctors and scientists and so on will tell us that people that are stunted appear like physically they appear as being younger than their actual age, shorter than their actual age, and so on. And they've got learning difficulties, and so on. But then again, the very same people that are described as being stunted, you'll find them being engineers, doctors, lawyers, and scientists, and software engineers, and so on. So if indeed that's true, why is it that why is it that the reality tells us otherwise? Why is it that you'll find a man maybe who is like maybe 1.6 meters, like maybe 1.5 meters tall, who is described as being stunted by a scientist, being an engineer at the same time?
I get
So
you. I
is
get
it
you.
is it that the whole issue of people being stunted is a pop culture myth? Because reality tells us a different story.
Well, let's hear what is considered stunted when it comes to science, because it could just be that the person is short. But doctor, your thoughts?
Interesting point, this one. And I guess this is alluding back to the point where I said that your genetics is effectively the plan for the house you could build, and the raw materials to build that house is the food that comes in. And those food molecules give you the energy, and they give you the raw materials to build your house. And if the food is in plentiful supply, you can realize the plans in your genetics and you build that house to the full specification. Now, if the builder has fewer tools and fewer raw materials to work with, then what do? That's where you have poor nutrition. That's the example. Well, you could say, well, I'll build half a house, and that would only be useful because a house with one floor and no roof is not really fit for anyone to live in. So what would the builder do? The builder would say, I will build the essentials first, and then I will make do with what I have left to build the rest of the house. And this is what the human body does. If you are subject to malnutrition or you are starving hungry, it's not applied to all of your tissues that they're going to end up with too few raw materials to work with. The body prioritizes, and often it will sacrifice developing other bits of the body to make sure that the most important organs are able to function. And the prime organ is your brain. And although extreme malnutrition will affect your brain power, it has to be quite bad before you really compromise the development of the brain. And so as a result, you can get people where the body says, I've got a choice to make, I've got limited raw materials, limited resources, I won't build the body so big, but I will make sure the brain gets what it needs. And so you generally find people might not develop a massive stature, but they tend to still develop a good quality brain. And the human brain is so adaptable anyway that with good education on top, even though a person might have had some hard times earlier in their life, they can really triumph and flourish if those problems are removed later in life. But of course, by then, the ship has sailed for building the body, because you only grow up until your teenage years, and then what you arrive at that point is what you have to live with for the rest of your life. So there's often a window of opportunity for the brain to continue to develop and to mature and to offset any nutritional deficits and so on, but that doesn't exist for the rest of the body, and the body tends to prioritize the development of the nervous system when calories and nutrients are shorter anyway, which is what I think is being alluded to here by Sammy.
Thank you so much, Sammy, for that question. I actually thought, Doctor, that you were going to say that it's possible that maybe when a child is younger and they're told in any shape or form that there's something not, in inverted commas, normal with you, they automatically start programming themselves that life is going to be harder, so they work 10 times harder. That's literally what I was thinking as the question came through.
Well, I think that's possibly true as well, that some people relish a challenge. And if you say to somebody, this is going to be tough for you, it does act as a stimulus to make some people go that extra mile. On the other hand, some people say, well, in that case, I won't do anything then. So it can work both ways. It's much better to give people as much encouragement as possible to realise their full potential and don't waste a moment of your life. That's the other thing.
All right. Thank you so much, Doctor. And then I have to ask you about a phenomenon interesting that I saw. A gentleman was watching a soccer match. I don't recall who was playing, but in the team, they were a set of identical twins. So he's showing the video where the one twin hurts his ankle and the other twin that was facing a completely different direction fell over at the same time in pain on the same ankle with no impact to their ankle. How is that possible?
You've got to be really careful about attaching significance to a coincidence here, which is if you went to a match and there were a couple of twins playing, you'd say, well, that's interesting, a couple of twins playing, and one fell over and the other one didn't. You'd ignore it. So you tend to attach significance to the one time that something a little bit unusual but coincidental occurred, and then you say, wow, this must be some amazing metaphysical thing going on here or something spooky. It's not. It was a chance thing, and all the other times the guy limped or hopped and the other one didn't, we ignored it. And it happens to us all the time, and we have to be really, really cautious about being biased by our love to spot patterns in things, because the way that humans learn, the way our brain works, we spot patterns in everything, and we try to use those patterns and recognize those patterns to make predictions. So when we spot two things happening at the same time, we tend to attach more significance to it than we otherwise should, and that can sometimes be a false friend, which I think is probably what happened here. Uncanny though it was.
No, it happened at exactly the same time. You saw the one's ankle go and the other one grab their ankle in pain. It was just the weirdest thing to see. I thought there was something bigger in the way that they're connected, but I think you've explained it really well. Here is a question coming through saying, Dr. Chris, does BMI give a true reflection of Africans as they are generally short?
What is BMI? BMI stands for Body Mass Index, also known as the Quetelet score, and it's where you take your weight in kilograms and you divide it by your height, and then you divide it by your height again, and that's height in meters, and it gives you a value. And that value is, if it's under 20, you're probably underweight. If it's over 25, you're probably overweight. If it's over 30, you're probably obese. And if it's between 20 and 25, you're probably healthy. Now, this is based on one particular group of people, one group of individuals for whom these data were used to compute these health scores. But there are always outliers. And if you take somebody who runs down the 100 meters track at the Olympics, that person is almost certainly going to be BMI 30 plus, because they're basically a barreling bundle of muscle, massively hyper-trained and weighing far more than the health score would indicate. They're not unhealthy, they're fighting fit. So this is a useful marker, but it is not the be-all and end-all. There will always be exceptions, and it does not really very well account for different cultures around the world who have different body shapes and body habituses, as we've just described earlier in the programme. And for that reason, you use it cautiously. So it's one of those things, it's not the be-all and end-all. It's a useful guide, but it is not the only show in town. So you use it with caution.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chris Smith. We're going to have to leave it there. Don't worry, we keep all of your questions for the upcoming episodes.
702 Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa.
I cover everything on my show. We tell you what's happening in the world of entertainment, of sport, but principally, of course, news and current affairs. But we also pride ourselves on weaving a thread in terms of social issues. Our conversations aren't just about opinions and opinion shapers. They're also about our listeners, their lives, and their experiences. Our listeners are people who are thinking about the hard issues our world is facing, but they're also people who themselves are decision makers. So many CEOs or ministers get some of the information that they use to make their decisions based on what the show covers.
702 Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa, weekdays from 6 to 9 a.m.
Gauteng is currently experiencing high water consumption. To avoid water interruptions, residents are urged to use water sparingly to allow equitable supply. Act now, save water. Every drop counts. This message is brought to you by the Department of Water and Sanitation, Rand Water, Gauteng Provincial Government, City of Johannesburg, City of Tshwane, and City of Ekurhuleni.
When you're running a small business, you need someone who speaks your language, who understands when you talk innovation, growth, scaling. Someone like MTN Business and 702. The 702 MTN Small Business Awards, from the townships to the suburbs and everywhere in between. We want to talk about you and your business. Go to primemediaplus.com to enter your business or nominate one you know. Because once we start talking about where you are now, you'll be well on your way to reaching your next. The 702 MTN Small Business Awards. Let's talk shop. T's, C's and more on primemediaplus.com.
Thank you so much for joining us on 702 Afternoons. We are back tomorrow. It's 3 o'clock.
This is EWN.
12 vehicles torched during protest in Gugompo, and court rules Relebogile can indeed receive her pension. Good afternoon, I'm Bali Dlamini. 12 vehicles have been torched during a protest in Gugompo in the Eastern Cape. The demonstration, led by several groups including March and March, along with traditional leaders, was held in opposition to the coronation of a so-called Nigerian king. The protest began peacefully but later turned violent following unconfirmed reports that a demonstrator had been stabbed. Police who dispersed the crowd, firing rubber bullets, say they have not verified these claims, and at this stage no injuries have been reported.
Eastern moved away from the City Hall where a petition was being handed over. 12 vehicles thus far have been damaged, with several buildings being torched. Emergency services, including the fire department, remain on the scene along with the public order policing unit. This is an active scene and updates will be shared in due course.
At the same time, police remain on high alert in the city this afternoon following violent demonstrations. Tensions have mostly been quelled, with firefighters also managing to put out the cars that were set alight. Babalondenze reports from Gugompo City.
The coronation of Igbo Chief Solomon Ogbonna Eziko has been received with anger by Gugompo residents who have gone on a violent protest in the city